Welcome to the Korea Pro podcast. I'm your host, Jeongmin Kim, the editorial director of Korea Pro.
And I'm John Lee, the editor of Korea Pro.
Join us for a weekly 15-minute conversation as we dive into the most pressing stories shaping South Korea and dissect the most complicated ones for you.
From politics to culture, technology to society, we've got you covered. So stay ahead of the curve and never be sidelined again.
So get ready for a fresh perspective on South Korea's news. This is the Korea Pro podcast. Welcome back, listeners. We are recording February 6th, Thursday at 5 p.m. I'm Jeongmin, your host. John's here today and Joon Ha as well, per usual. Let's start with domestic politics. It has been very difficult to monitor these nitty-gritty, headlines and remarks coming out from multiple hearings and trials and constitutional court examinations, witness examinations and whatnot. But to you first, Joon Ha, what happened at the parliamentary hearing?
Yeah, so the parliamentary hearing that happened on Tuesday, and it's happening right now as well on Thursday. And a lot of the military commanders have been giving conflicting views on and testimonies regarding the plans that went into Yoon's December 3rd martial law, the way that it was imposed, the way that it was carried out at the National Assembly. The basic sides of conflict right now is, of course, Yoon's lawyers and also Yoon himself, along with the former defense minister Kim Yong-hyun, who effectively deny that Yoon ordered special ops commanders to go ahead and arrest lawmakers and drag them out from the assembly hall. However, testimonies that have come out over the past few days, they've suggested that these commanders did indeed receive those orders, including the NIS deputy chief, Hong Jang-won, who was testifying at the Constitutional Court just yesterday or 2 days ago, I believe. And he directly refuted Yoon's claims right in front of him, saying that Yoon's orders that were given to him, and he was directly telling Yoon's lawyers that, do you think that I made all of this up? When in fact, Yoon gave the order to arrest certain politicians.
So, okay, a lot of drama going on. It's very soap opera, like court genre. But how about like those remarks from military commanders that were involved at the time? The troop scale and also whether or not they heard the word gun from Yoon or Kim. Like, what's their recent arguments, basically?
Well, the recent arguments that have come out, there's no new revelations on like the sort of hearings of, Yoon's mention of a gun or whatsoever. However, the 707th unit commander, he testified in front of the National Assembly and also is testifying in front of the Constitutional Court as well today. But he was saying that of the forces that were deployed to the National Assembly, he testified that he received the order to seal and, block off the National Assembly.
So it doesn't go above 150, is what he said, right?
And,
so he's claiming that he's heard that from who?
He's claiming that he's heard that from Kwak Jong-gun, who was the special ops commander, or former special ops commander. He's in prison now.
I see. Then let's move on to not the hearings, but also there was this major move where the acting president Choi Sang-mok vetoed the latest bill from the Democratic Party, opposition Democratic Party, not only about the insurrection allegations, but also the inciting foreign aggression, I believe. But the main thing is the insurrection part. So what did he say when he vetoed it?
Well, he was saying that there hasn't been a resolve within the ruling and the opposition parties. He's saying that give me a resolve first and then I'll pass it over.
So it's the same game plan that he's using when it comes to the Constitutional Court justices before, right? And speaking of which, John, there was this ruling from the Constitutional Court as well saying that it was not constitutional for Choi to appoint just 2 out of 3 constitutional court justice nominees. What was the response from the parties about that ruling?
Well, of course, the Democratic Party was quite pleased with that ruling. They've been wanting all 3 justices to be appointed.
And the last one was progressive, right?
Yes. And the People Power Party, of course, is quite unhappy about this, and they're still sticking to their guns. They're still saying that Choi did not even have the authority to appoint even those 2, and so he should definitely not be appointing the 3rd. As for the acting president himself, he has said this in a roundabout way, that he does respect the Constitutional Court's ruling. Well, of course he should. But he also said that he still wants to see the 2 parties to resolve their differences. And
so the same logic.
It's still the same logic. And so now the big question...
Quite principled, I would say.
It's quite principled, but it's also... If he continues to say that he respects the Constitutional Court's ruling, but does not actually appoint the third justice until there is some sort of agreement between the two parties,
Which is not going to happen.
then this will be unconstitutional. And so the question is, will Choi finally appoint the third justice, or will he just dither around, which might possibly cause the Democratic Party to impeach yet another acting president?
And they already threatened Choi, saying exactly that. They weren't like, oh, because this ruling says that it was unconstitutional, we will impeach it right away.
Mhm.
But DP instead went for, okay, then now appoint this Justice Maeunyeok. If not, we will impeach you, is the argument right now. Let's move on to economy. It has been a hectic week, not just in Korea when it comes to economy trade-related policies, but just all over the world, right, basically. Let's start with tariffs. What's the latest with the U.S. position on tariffs, especially regarding Asian countries?
The U.S. tariffs on China is still at 10%. That has not been put on pause, unlike the pauses that he put on Canada and Mexico.
A month, right?
They are on pause for a month, but for the one that he imposed on China, the 10% tariffs, that's still in place. And China has responded. And one of the ways that China's responded is by putting export controls on tungsten and a number of other precious rare earth metals.
Oh, that should hurt.
It will hurt, but it's not just for the U.S. Because if you look at the Chinese Commerce Ministry's documents, when they said that they're going to impose export controls on, I believe it was 5 or 6 of these additional metals. And we have to remember that in 2023, they had export controls on gallium, germanium, and graphite. China did not specifically say that this export controls is only for the U.S. They said that these can be used for dual purposes, for civilian and military purposes. And so this applies to every country.
I see.
And now, of course, this is not an outright ban. This export controls requires Chinese exporters to get permission from the Chinese government to export all of these, which will cause delays. And of course, delays will still cost money. And so from South Korea's point of view, the graphite, the gallium, and the germanium export controls already hurt the industry a bit. This will hurt them even more. And so this is what South Korea is dealing with right now. So on the one hand, China's already imposed export controls of these precious earth minerals, which we can see China is weaponizing its very overwhelming control of this sector to get its way. But at the same time, South Korea can't really rely on the U.S. anymore because the U.S. is just imposing tariffs on everyone, including allies. And so South Korea is just caught in a tough spot. Does it align itself with the Washington? And even if it does, will it matter if this government says anything? They're on borrowed time right now anyway. And so there are a lot of uncertainties going on.
And speaking of China, I just wanted to touch on this just very briefly. DeepSeek. This was one of the biggest news this week. Can you walk us through just very briefly what this is and also why South Korean, I believe, MOFA and the Industries Ministry and now the Environment Ministry,
the Defense Ministry is also considering
blocking the DeepSeek access to their government websites.
All right. So firstly, DeepSeek is a Chinese company. And they created this large-scale language model, LLM, which is similar to ChatGPT, but they call it R1. And we have to take this number with a grain of salt. DeepSeek claims that they only spent $6 million to develop R1, which they also made open source, by the way, so anyone can download this. But this caused markets, especially NVIDIA, to lose a lot of values in their stocks as soon as this announcement was made. But when it comes to South Korea was not the first government to say that we are not going to allow R1 to be used in these government ministry websites. This was already initiated by the U.S. And South Korea is now following suit. And the argument that both countries are making is that there are concerns about security and whether or not any of the information that they type into R1's LLM program might eventually make their ways back into Chinese servers, thus compromising both countries' potentially very high-level secret information. And so, the South Korean government has made this announcement. But that being said, I have to wonder why they're making this announcement now. It's not like as though various ministries haven't already been infiltrated by Chinese hackers anyway. But there we go.
All right, let's move on to foreign policy. What is South Korean foreign minister doing these days anyways? He is going to Japan, or did he go to Japan?
He's set to have a first in-person meeting with Marco Rubio on sidelines in Munich, I believe. I think it's the security conference there.
Yeah, where I will be going as well.
That's true. Yes, our very own. And he said that earlier discussions, or his office said that earlier discussions were ongoing with the State Department.
And I heard J.D. Vance is also coming to MSC. Yeah.
So it'd be great for the South Korean foreign minister to meet with Rubio, finally. But we also have to keep in mind that President Donald Trump has already spoken with Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba. And the foreign ministers have already met. As soon as Donald Trump was sworn into office, it took maybe a day or two for the Quad leaders to meet, where they made the statement that excluded the phrase a denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, by the way. And so the Japanese government has already made a lot of inroads with the Trump administration, and only now South Korea is finally getting the foreign minister to meet with Rubio just on the sidelines. And so South Korea just cannot get its act together. So thank you very much, President Yoon.
Last topic, the Blue Whale Project. 대왕고래 project. John, walk us through what it was.
So
I'm using past tense, by the way.
Exactly. So last year, President Yoon made this very weird announcement where he gave a full briefing saying that he was going to set up this commission to explore oil and gas by the East Sea. And yeah, they finally came up with the first report, and they said something that we all knew decades ago already, that yes, there might be oil and gas down there, but it's not economically feasible. So again, thank you, President Yoon, for just spending so much political capital and time on something that we knew decades ago was not going to be feasible. Just what good are you?
And not just political capital, just capital as well used for this project. And I feel sorry for people who had to sort of tag along and just do the briefing together with Yoon at the time. Like a lot of ministers as well.
Industries Minister An Dok-gun was standing right next to the president the whole time.
And who was making this announcement today?
An Dok-gun.
Ah, I see.
Looking to stay informed about South Korea's fast-evolving political, business and cultural landscape? Join us on Korea Pro, the go-to resource for in-depth analysis expertly curated by top-tier professionals. And now you can pick the membership level that best suits your needs, thanks to our new subscription packages. Starting at just $199 annually, you can access daily analysis and our weekly podcast. Or try our premium membership package, which offers additional perks such as executive briefings, monthly reports and forecasts, networking receptions and event opportunities, as well as much, much more. To find the best fit for you, just head to signup.koreapro.org and become a member today.
Week ahead, the most important thing in South Korean domestic politics would be the 8th and potentially the final trial date scheduled so far for President Yoon about the impeachment at the Constitutional Court. That will be February 13th, I believe. But in Park Geun-hye's case, it went up until like 16 trials, but this is much less complicated case, and the Constitutional Court has been rejecting additional witnesses that Yoon has asked for. So it does look like it actually might end very soon. And if it does, and it does not go over to like 9th or 10th hearing, this means that after the final trial date, hearing date, Yoon will give the final pleading, and then the judges will take around 10 to 14 days to deliberate and then deliver the ruling. So it's coming up, guys.
We're going to find out by the end of this month whether or not Yoon will finally be removed from office.
Unless justices add like a bunch of witnesses last minute.
Yeah.
And speaking of Constitutional Court, announced recently, I think 24 hours ago, that Han Dok-soo case will start on February 19th. It looks like they might want to end the Yoon impeachment trial before then, but we'll see next week, and we will have everything in the week ahead, and Anything else?
Yeah, so South Korean athletes will be heading to Harbin, or they have already headed to Harbin for the Winter Asian Games, which will be starting officially starting tomorrow on February 7th. So just tune in for any medal news.
Are there any news about North Korean athletes going
Yeah,
there?
so 3 North Korean figure skaters, they've gone to Harbin. And I believe that they have landed by now. And they will be competing alongside South Korean figure skaters on the same competition.
Are there any Samsung phone rewards this time around?
I
It was a
don't believe
controversy
so.
last time.
I don't believe so. I think that was only reserved for the Olympics.
I see. All right. And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in.
If you want to know more, sign up for our daily executive briefings. We brief you on all you need to know from the past 24 hours and why they matter every morning in your inboxes.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for your weekly dose of insight. And until next time, I'm Jeongmin Kim.
And I'm John Lay. Stay connected, stay informed, and we'll see you next time on the Korea Pro Podcast.